Hey, friend, welcome on back. We're going to talk a little bit about the rest of stuff for week 1 here. So we have our first lab exercise. These are going to be done in the discussion forums. So the idea with these is you have your initial post, and then you're going to reply to a classmate. The cadence for these is going to be you need to post by the next Sunday, 11:59 p.m., and then you'll have your reply due a week after that. Ideally, we can get it all done in the first week, but I know you folks are busy people. I'm a busy person myself. So we have this second week for replies if we need it. I'd rather we not use it if possible because the material is going to keep going on. So if you don't have it all done, you kind of have stuff hanging from the week before as we're starting new stuff, and it gets a little bit funny here, but I want to give you the benefit here to make sure we can get stuff in and done, because I don't know when you can get your initial post by. I used to try and require them a couple days into the week, but given we start on Mondays, like a couple days into the week is still the work week for a lot of you folks, and that's not great because maybe the weekend is when you have time to do classes. So just get it in by the next Sunday, and then, ideally we're done the first week, but if you need to wait another couple days to get that reply in, the absolute latest for that is the week after by 11:59 p.m. So you're going to work with a partner on this. So is post in the discussion, introduce yourself, just, hey, here's my name, so-and-so, I'm usually around these times, or I prefer to email, or I want to meet on Zoom, something about yourself and how you can find somebody. And then you and your partner will kind of buddy up, make sure you can get all the tools installed, Python, PyCharm, and the GitHub desktop client, we'll show in just a minute, and make sure that you can run your code without errors. Then you're just going to reply on your partner's thread. Do I need an apostrophe there? I'm bad at English, I apologize. With the Python code that prints the introduction of your partner using Python code like the print command. So I'll show you what that looks like. Then when you're done, we're going to practice with GitHub. So GitHub is an amazing tool. Git is the source control tool. So this is Git, written by a friend Linus Torvald, the founder of Linux. And Git is the most widely used source control tool in the industry for software engineering. GitHub is the hosting provider of one of the hosting providers for the Git source control tool. They're owned by, oh goodness, what do I want here? Nope, none of these, none of those links here. I want one from our class. There it is, sorry. GitHub is owned by Microsoft, and they give away their services to folks for free for open source tools and for educational use, which is fantastic. So we're going to make use of the GitHub tool, and they also have a cool little classroom tool that we're going to use that will make repositories for you. I know repository sounds like a fancy word, but it's really just a fancy word for a folder that the Git tool is watching. So here is the repository site for our course. So in the content section here, course information, we have the course repository. That's this website here, github.com/ericjaneski/CIS2131-summer2023. You don't need to remember that. We can always come back to it. This is where all the code's going to go. So we did these Hello World examples. That's not very exciting, but I'm going to come to the GitHub desktop tool. I have a copy of this folder on my computer. Git is a distributed source control tool. So everybody who has a clone of the repository or a copy of the repository has all of the code. And we can see there's a bunch of things happening here. Anytime you see green, that's new. And eventually in here, you'll see this like week1.py or the main.py here. And we can actually see the code inside. All these other files, we don't care too much about. Anything that's in this .idea folder is great. That just is part of the PyCharm tool. Just let them be. Let them change. We really care about the py files. That's the interesting stuff here. That's our source code. That's our code. So it's going to show you changes. So Git's job is to watch a folder for files to change. When files change, it says, hey, I see something changed. And what we get to do is we get to make these commits. A commit is just a snapshot of what this folder looked like, what the files were at a given point in time. So I'm going to make a commit, and I'm going to say this is my week 1 Hello World examples. And I'll make a commit. Now all the changes go away because we've taken a snapshot. Nothing has changed since the last snapshot. But now it says, hey, I have one local commit waiting to be pushed to GitHub. So my local repository, my copy, has this commit, but github.com, the central repository, the cloud repository, does not. So I'm going to go push. And it thinks for a second here, and then it says, okay, great, we're all up to date. Now I'm going to click the View on GitHub button. View on GitHub will launch the website back out, and I can see there's folders now. There's some other things in here, this README file, and so I've got a copy of the syllabus out here, so you don't have to go and look at the Word version if you want to see the schedule, that sort of stuff. But you can click in the folder here. Hey, here's Hello World, easy. And there's the .idea folder, just ignore that one for now. And the main.py file, you can click on it, you can actually see the contents of it. And what's really cool is you can pick an individual line, and that becomes a link in the URL. Hey, this is the link to line 3 now. Okay, so we can take this link here, this URL, and copy and send it to me and say, hey, Eric, I'm having trouble with my code here. I'm getting an error. I don't know what it is. That's pretty easy here because I can go see your code, and generally I can figure it out just by looking at it. If I need to, I can make a copy of your repository and I can pull it up on my computer and see what's happening here. Much easier than trying to take pictures or screenshots and that sorts of things. I mean, screenshots aren't bad, but having your code on Git is fantastic. So that's probably the easiest way to go about this here. And that's what we're going to practice. So for the Lab 1 exercise here, we're going to find this classroom.github.com link. So all of our projects will have one of these links here, and you're going to turn in code. So the GitHub Classroom tool will create private repositories that you'll have access to and I'll have access to. And no one else will have access, which is great because you don't want someone else copying off your work. So you go to the link here. I'm going to control click so it opens in a new tab. It says, okay, hey, do you want to accept the assignment? You got to make sure you're logged in. So this is your free GitHub account. Yeah, it's going to make a repository, CIS 2131, summer 2023, lab 1 - your username. My GitHub username is Eric Chinesky. Yours can be anything you want. It is public. It doesn't matter what it is because you'll turn stuff into desire to learn. We'll say, yes, I'm going to accept the assignment. It says, hey, it might take a few minutes. It takes like 5 seconds maybe. So I'm just going to hit refresh. That's F5, or come up here and hit the refresh button, and we're good to go. Now I can click the link to my repository. Here's the repository online. So this is in github.com on the cloud. We've got this repository. It comes with the main py file, and it's got a README. It's great. It's all we need. So I'm going to click on code and say open with GitHub Desktop. If you haven't installed that tool yet, go to desktop.github.com and install it. It's pretty quick. And yes, we want to open the GitHub tool. It should pop up if you're logged in. If you're not logged in, go ahead and log in. It says, hey, I want to clone this repository. Here's the URL for it, github.com, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to put it in this local path. Now, this local path is important. The default here is going to be your documents, GitHub, and then the name of the repository is a folder. Defaults are great. If you want it somewhere else, go for it. I don't care where you put it. It really doesn't matter because I'm only ever going to look at it on the cloud. Wherever you put it, you're going to have to make files in that folder. So just know where it goes. Defaults are easy. And again, if you want to change it, go ahead and change it. So I'll say clone. We'll go make that repository for me. Now, the other favorite shortcut here is Show in Explorer. I'm going to click Show in Explorer. It opens up my File Explorer right to this location here. And I'm good to go. So I can just come right here, and I've got my folder. Right now, back in PyCharm, I'm going to go File, New Project, and I'm going to go find that location. So before I was using this folder because that was my course repository that's public. I'm going to click on Browse, and you might have to go into your C users. It's not the best browse tool here. So C users, your user, go to your documents folder. If you use OneDrive, sometimes it's your OneDrive documents, so just pay attention to that path. And then in GitHub, and I've got a bunch of these. You probably don't have as many as I do because I just have a gazillion of them here, and I never clean them up because I'm lazy. So here's my CIS 2131 summer 2023 folder. That's the public one. Here's the CIS 2131 summer 2023 lab 1 folder. So lab 1 is the one I want. So this is the folder I want to create the project in. We're good to go. And we actually don't need to check the create a main py welcome script because I already gave one to you for these. So when you're doing your own work, just stuff you want to practice with, play with, great, and create it for you. But I gave you one here. So when you say create and you don't have that checked, it says, hey, do you want to make from existing sources? Yes, let's create from existing sources. Open in this window, and it will recognize there's a main py file here for you. Don't do it in the README file. You don't want the README file. You want the main py. So double-click main py, and I just left a note here that says code goes here. Again, we'll talk more about this later. You can leave the line. You can get rid of it, whatever you want here. So for the introduction, right, the idea after we figured out how we introduce our partners here, we need to introduce their name, or introduce them, including their name and preferred pronouns, reason for taking the class, what they do when they aren't in class, and a fun fact about them. So you can say print, and then in quotes, Eric Chinesky, my preferred pronouns are he and him, and now quotes get a little funny here. If you want apostrophes, it gets unhappy. You notice it's not green anymore. Like the green's the kind of the hint here. It's one big string, one big set of letters. So I can use double quotes here instead of just single quote apostrophes and say, the teacher, I have to be here. Sure. Right, and then we can print. And what do I do when I'm not in class? Right? What do they do when they aren't in class? And let's see, again, I need my double quotes. I'm or I don't know, I can say Eric is, we can talk about myself in the third person, right? Eric is usually busy playing with his 7 kids. And a fun fact about myself, Eric is a runner, currently training for his, what is it, this now, 10th marathon. Since 2014, I've been running just about one a year. One year I skipped one, but I did 2 another year. So I think I'm up to 10. I don't know. I would have to look again. I've got a spreadsheet, believe it or not. So training for my 10th marathon. I think it's 10th, and it should be a lot of fun. Great. So I'm going to run it, make sure it runs here, and I'll get a bunch of prints, right? I see all my content showing up here in this bottom section. Great. And make sure it's saved. Now, if I come back to the GitHub client, it should see a bunch of new stuff. Say, hey, there's a bunch of new things. Again, anything that's a .idea, just ignore, let it happen here. But the main PY file says, hey, there's new stuff. So it shows up as orange because it's changed. It's not brand new. So we've changed the file, and we've added these lines in green. So the lines on the left were the original. The lines on the right, line numbers on the right are the new version here. So we can say this is lab 1. I'm going to commit and push. Once I've pushed, now I've synchronized with the cloud, I can say view on GitHub. It will launch out the website again. I'm going to go click the main PY file and make sure I can see all of my stuff. Make sure I can see my code. If you can see your code on github.com in this OCC repo, then I'll be able to see your code on github.com in that OCC repo. Okay, I'm going to grab this URL, and that's what we're going to turn into the lab. So when it says, hey, please submit the URL to your repository, you'll just copy paste that in the submission box, and we'll be good to go. So that's what we're doing for the practice assignment. After you've introduced your partner or your partner introduces you, copy paste the code, make sure we can get these GitHub repositories working, because this is how you're going to turn in code for the projects that are actually scored. This wasn't just practice to make sure the process works for you. And again, if you're having trouble work with your partner, they're going to be a great resource. Between the two of you, you can probably figure it out. If you're still stuck, let me know. I'm always happy to help. We'll schedule some office hours. I'll get that link out to you in a little while. I'll post that as well. And then we can talk about it from there. Always happy to help, ask in the Discord, and we can go from there. So thanks, folks. Have a great week, and don't forget to actually read all the stuff from Dr. Chuck in Chapter 1. I'll talk to you later.